Tim, what did you think of the hiring of Ken Dorsey as the offensive coordinator?
I thought it was interesting. And, I did a piece for cleveland.com the day after, the hiring and the news broke out that, was Ken Dorsey really the problem in Buffalo, or was he the scapegoat? And most of the reaction that I found was they thought, he was kind of the fall guy for some of the issues they had. They were 5-5. They just suffered a shocking Monday night loss in which, they had 12 men on the field on what was a missed field goal opportunity for the Broncos that would have given the Bills the win, but instead they got a second chance they wanted, and Dorsey was fired the next day. And I think when you look at where the Bills were with Dorsey last season prior to the firing, the offensive metrics were better when he was the offensive coordinator versus what they were when Joe Brady took over as the interim, after week 10. And part of that was obviously, maybe they a little more emphasis on running the football. But the problem in Buffalo with Dorsey was, things that weren't in his control, drop passes, interceptions, Josh Allen turning the ball over, things that aren't in the offensive coordinator's control. And, if you're an offensive coordinator, you can only do so much. You can only call the plays. You can't, it's hard to you can't really do anything about turnovers other than try and call more conservative plays to protect your offense, and that's in those situations. But it was a difficult situation. It obviously worked out for the Bills that they were able to win the AFC East. They got the second seed, so it worked out for them. But for Dorsey, I think he got fired for circumstances that seemed like they were out of his control. And if they kept him throughout the season, who's to say they wouldn't be in the same position, especially if Josh Allen and company were better at protecting the football.
Well, one thing that took a hit without question was Stefon Diggs' production. Take a look at this. With Dorsey, 10 games, 73 receptions, 868 yards, 7 touchdowns. Without Dorsey, 9 games, 44 receptions, 388 yards, and 1 touchdown. Now, the only metric that the offense improved in was fewer interceptions by Josh Allen, and they ran the ball more effectively. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up working, obviously. One loss down the rest of the stretch, that 5-game gauntlet they had at the end of the regular season, they won out of it to get to the playoffs. So they did what they had to do necessarily. And obviously, when you look at those numbers, obviously at the expense of Stefon Diggs, from my own rough math, 7.3 receptions a game down to fewer than 5. And, having 1 touchdown over 9 games compared to 7, obviously, tells me they weren't throwing the ball as much. They were getting James Cook more involved in the run game, and that made sense because Cook is, really underrated. And they have multitudes of weapons. Gabe Davis, Dalton Kincaid. Khalil Shakir looked like he really took a step up. With Joe Brady's the offensive coordinator, but when Stefon Diggs is that big money guy in Buffalo, and he's not being the highlighted guy. There's certainly reasons for it, and whether it was just the shift of the offense to a more run-focused system, or whether they were more focused in just trying to spread the ball out. That's something that might be concerning. But with the Browns, I think it's more interesting if they do spread the ball out, because obviously you have Amari Cooper, you have David Njoku as out of the backfield. You have Jerome Ford, who's proven himself as a solid receiving running back. So it'll be interesting what kind of input Ken Dorsey has on the offense as far as what kind of targets they would add in the offseason.